is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back with some more Resident Evil 4 Remake gameplay for you. And today I'm going to continue my Separate Ways videos as I'm going to be talking about the most prevalent thing that I took into the trailer that was released a couple days ago. And if you don't already know, Separate Ways is coming out September 21st, so basically in under a week now. But basically the most important thing that I think happened in that trailer, and I say it's important because it never happened in the original one, was Ada being infected at the very end of the trailer, and that just introduces a whole new can of worms that we're going to get into as we get into this. But let's just go right about it. Yeah, Ada is one of the few characters, as I may have mentioned this. Chris and Ada were actually two of the major characters of Resident Evil that had never been infected before, period. Until this year, so that unfortunately ended for both of them, as Chris was infected in Death Island and now Ada infected in Resident Evil 4 Remake. But as I said, the difference there is the fact that Death Island is a brand new adventure where this is a remake, so there's a little bit of discrepancy here. As I said, this never happened in the original, so this is a whole new dynamic here. So my first question I wanted to raise was just the fact that, how and where does Ada get infected? And as I said, since this is a remake and just the fact that she is getting infected, we can't just assume it's going to be like the original. I know some predictions that maybe it's when she's about to get sacrificed to the altar, maybe it's when Sadler knocks her out, or maybe it's somewhere in between something. But who knows? Another thing to take into account is the fact that, like for instance, during the trailer we see Ada grappling over the castle, but in broad daylight. We never really get to the castle in broad daylight ever until now, so that's a huge another difference from this remake in terms of the Separate Ways compared to the original one. So we could honestly speculate all day long, but I think even bigger than more how she gets infected is two things. One, what does she do when she's infected? Does she, attack Luis or start to lose control? Does she start seeing things, or whatever it may pertain to? And also the fact that how does she get the Plagas out? Because as I said, there was a big deal in the original game. Just getting it out took everything Leon could possibly muster just to endure not turning, and then keeping Ashley from turning, and then eventually getting the Plagas out with the whole laser thing in the chair. But how does Ada get it out? So I have no idea. I don't know if that's the only one on the island or just the only one that could be accessible there. Also, not to mention that Luis is probably the only person who knows how to do it. So it makes me wonder, the timing of these events, when it happens, when it does, compared to the main events of the main campaign. So I'm also wondering how long it lasts, the infected state. Does it last a small portion, or is it the entirety of the campaign? How long does this go on? So it introduces so many questions. As I said, in terms of my bingo list of what I was expecting and wanting from Separate Ways, Ada being effective was not anything that ever crossed my mind, but it just adds a whole new what they're going to do with it. And as I said, the best part is we don't have to wait too long to see what they're going to do with it, because next week is coming sooner than you think. But now let's get into the next, probably the big can of worms here. And I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and I guess I'll give you my take on but if you're not aware of it, Death Island had a dynamic to it that really had a lot of people talking, that a lot of people were just wondering and not a big fan of when it was revealed. And that was the whole fact that the characters are aging, especially the female characters. And a lot of people brought up the thing that, hey, why does Jill look like she just came out of 1998 from Resident Evil 3 Remake? And then some people was like, well, you know what, look at Claire and Rebecca too. Why did they all look so young? Now, I'll give you my reason, as I did in a video about a month or two ago. But basically, Capcom gave their reason for why this is, and their whole reasoning was because since Jill was infected, well, I'll start with Jill first. That was the important one, because I'll get into that later on. But basically, since Jill was infected with a virus, that means that, hey, her aging was slowed down because it lay dormant in her body. I'm not going to get into the heavy detail, but because she was infected with the T virus, she was her aging just slowed down, and it didn't help with the whole events of Resident Evil 5 either. That just prolonged her aging and stuff like that. So that was their reason. And then, people probably question, why is Claire and Rebecca young? Well, because they've also been infected too. Claire had been infected in, I believe, Revelations 2, and then Rebecca in the Vendetta movie. But then some people bring up, hey, the male character, well, up until Chris hadn't been until that movie, Death Island, but, what about the other characters? They've been infected too, right? Like Leon was infected with Las Plagas, which technically it's not a virus, it's a parasite. But regardless, it started a whole debate. And just to sum up in short, I'll give you the actual reason why they don't age, and it's a culture thing in Japan. It just is. Japan just does not want to age up their female characters. It's just, as I said, it's one of those things that I don't care for it either. It doesn't really bother me too much because I've just learned to accept it. It's just a culture thing. It's kind of like how, for example, I gave the same example in that video. I talked about the aging thing. Like, you look at someone like in Dragon Ball Z, Master Roshi, he's going to look old and ancient as hell, no matter if he's like 500 years old. But then on the same layer of token, if you take someone like from Naruto, Tsunade, who's basically grandma age, but magically she knows a jutsu to make her look young and appealing and stuff. She's like grandma age, but it's just one short example. But yeah, Japanese people value the beauty of women, and they want them always looking young. So it's just, if you don't like it, that's perfectly fine. I get it. But it's just, I don't know how you're going to change it. It's a culture thing. It's basically the culture. And it's not like saying, oh, they never do. But more times than not, it's just how it is. So I've just learned to kind of accept it. You don't have to like it, but I don't know how you're ever going to change the whole culture of that. So that's just my thing about the aging. But I think the bigger question I want to speak on in terms of the aging is this was the big can of worms from that whole Death Island thing. I know a lot of people know this, but I made a video, and also it's going to be a precursor to a rant video that's going to come eventually. I don't know when, but a little nod to that, just a little heads up for that coming soon eventually. But pretty much the whole thing with Jill being young also is that Capcom told people that made Death Island that pre-mandate that, hey, keep Jill young and stuff because she's going to be important. She's an important character for the future of the franchise and stuff. But then they break section with Claire and Rebecca. Well, why were they young? Well, they're not the important characters, but keep them young just to, for the looks and the sales of the, Blu-ray cover or something like that, or be more appealing, basically. So my point being is that Claire and Rebecca are not important characters according to Capcom. They're just kept young to be more appealing and sell more copies and stuff like that, which I think is absolute BS and disrespectful to both characters, but another day on that. My point being is, where does that set Ada? Because I know a lot of people are going to think, oh, well, Ada's infected. That's going to be their excuse to keep her young and stuff. And I wouldn't even put it past them for that. But the point here is that Jill is kept young basically because, oh, she's important and stuff, etc., etc. Rebecca and Claire are kept young just to be more appealing because they're not important. They just want to make them look good. Is Ada an important character or just there to look good and appealing? And that's the real question I take from all this, being affected stuff. And I don't know. I don't know how to question that because you got to remember, of all the major characters, Ada's the one that has the farthest in between in terms of her last appearance now since Death Island came out. Because unfortunately, Ada wasn't in Death Island. Her last appearance was Resident Evil 6. We don't know what she looks like and what she'd be doing. As I said, she was supposed to be in Village as DLC, but unfortunately that got scrapped. But we haven't seen her since Resident Evil 6, so I'm just wondering when is going to be her next latest new appearance, not in terms of a remake. And hopefully that does come one day, but hopefully she is an important character. And I like to think that it's not just because she's my favorite, but she is very important to the franchise. But unfortunately, we're going to have to just wait on that. But I just, deep down, as I don't know, I'm only speculating, I just kind of hope that her being affected actually means something and not just their little get out of jail free cards. Hey, she's infected, so that's why she's always young and stuff. I know Ada's probably more in terms of the looks than any other of the Resident Evil characters and stuff like that, but still, I don't just want it to be done for, you know, a silly, stupid reason like that. Like, make it mean something. Make it an impactful moment. Because I said, Leon being affected in Resident Evil 4, as well as Ashley, was like, you know, big, powerful moments. Because you're just wondering at so many times where they're going to turn. Another thing people I remember talking about is like, hey, they missed the scene where Leon was infected and actually lost it for a second and about choked out Ada until she stabbed him in the down below and kicked them and stuff, and they're just wondering like, hey, you know, maybe they could do something like that, but just, you know, Ada the one doing it and stuff like that. I don't know how that's going to be done, but just, you know, it's pure speculation. But overall, as I said, make it mean something, make it be cool and different, and maybe even have, you know, show something like, you know, Ada having like, you know, that, you know, we don't really see a lot of fear with Ada a lot of times, and maybe she has a little fear and being affected, like show a different side of her if you're going to do something like that. But as I said, we don't have to wait too long. We still got a little under a week left, and so I'll be playing the hell out of that next week. But that's all my opinion on the whole Ada being affected and the whole aging thing. I want to hear your guys' opinion. What's your feelings on it? Do you think they have the potential to do something unique or different? Or do you think that, hey, they just did that just to have some really cheap way of keeping Ada young? Or maybe they can surprise us to do something effective. Let me know down below in the comment section. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. And hopefully I can see you guys back on the next one. Thanks, and I'll see you all later. Peace.